Ty Cobb wasn't just a baseball player. He was a storm in spikes. A man whose name still sparks arguments more than a century later. Was he a genius? A bully? A product of his time? Or all of the above? So today, we're diving into the wild, aggressive, and downright eccentric life of the Georgia Peach, Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb was born in 1886 in rural Georgia, and from the start, life didn't exactly deal him a gentle hand. His father, a stern and demanding figure, pushed Ty to be exceptional. By most accounts, Ty Cobb had become fascinated with baseball as a child, and decided that he wanted to go professional one day. Now, his father was very opposed to this idea, but by his teenage years, Cobb was trying out for area teams. He played his first year in organized baseball with the Royston Rompers, the semi-pro Royston Reds, and the Augusta Tourists of the South Atlantic League, who released him after only 2 days. Now, that didn't stop Ty Cobb. He continued to try out for more semi-pro teams, with his father's voice ringing in his ears. Don't come home a failure. The relationship between Cobb and his father was always an interesting one, and on August 8th of 1905, Ty Cobb's mother, Amanda, fatally shot his father, William, with a pistol that William had purchased for her. Court records indicate that William Cobb had suspected Amanda of infidelity and was sneaking past his own bedroom window to catch her in the act. She saw the silhouette of what she presumed to be an intruder and, acting in self-defense, shot and killed her husband. Amanda Cobb was charged with murder and released on a $7,000 recognizance bond. She was acquitted on March 31st of 1906. But Ty Cobb later attributed his ferocious play to his late father, saying, "I did it for my father. He never got to see me play. But I knew he was watching me, and I never let him down." Cobb was just 18 when his father was murdered, which was an event that haunted him for the rest of his life. Many historians believe that moment hardened Cobb, fueling the fire that would define his career. He entered the major leagues not just wanting to succeed, but needing to dominate. 3 weeks after his mother killed his father, Cobb debuted in center field for the Detroit Tigers. It didn't take long for his teammates to hate him, opponents to fear him, and fans to realize they were witnessing something entirely new. As a rookie, Cobb was subject to severe hazing by his veteran teammates, who were jealous of the young prospect. The players smashed his homemade bats, nailed his cleats in the clubhouse, doused his clothes before tying him in knots, and verbally abused him. Cobb later attributed his hostile temperament to this experience, saying, "These old-timers turned me into a snarling wildcat." Tigers manager Huey Jennings, who took the helm in 1907, later acknowledged that Cobb was targeted for abuse by veteran players, some of whom sought to force him off the team. Jennings said, "I let this go for a while because I wanted to satisfy myself that Cobb has as much guts as I thought in the very beginning. Well, he proved it to me, and I told the other players to let him alone. He is going to be a great baseball player, and I won't allow him to be driven off this club." Ty Cobb didn't just play baseball, he attacked it. He ran the bases like he was charging a battlefield. He slid with sharpened spikes. Yeah, sharpened. And he wasn't shy about using them. To Cobb, every base was a fight, every pitch a challenge, and every opponent an obstacle to be crushed. Cobb was a career .366, .433, .512 hitter, with an OPS plus of 168, which was good for a WAR of 151.4. He had 4,000 hits, 54 steals of home, and 12 batting titles. He was an MVP award winner and a Triple Crown award winner. But the numbers only tell half the story. Cobb played with a fury that made him both unstoppable and infamous. He once climbed into the stands to fight a heckler. He fought teammates, he fought fans, he fought umpires. If you were breathing, you were fair game. And yet, that same fire made him one of the greatest competitors the sport had ever seen. In 1907, during spring training in Augusta, Georgia, a groundskeeper named Bungie Cummings, whom Cobb had known for years, attempted to shake Cobb's hand or pat him on the shoulder. The overly familiar greeting infuriated Cobb, who attacked Cummings. When Cummings' wife tried to defend him, Cobb allegedly choked her. The assault was only stopped when catcher Charles Boss Schmidt knocked Cobb out. That all comes from the Smithsonian. However, aside from Schmidt's statement to the press, no other corroborating witnesses to the assault on Cummings ever came forward, and Cummings himself never made a public comment about it. Author Charles Learshin speculates that the assault on Cummings and his wife never occurred, and it was a total fabrication by Schmidt. Cobb had spent the previous year defending himself on several occasions from assaults by Schmidt, with Schmidt often coming out of nowhere to blindside Cobb. To play devil's advocate, on that day, several reporters did see Cummings, who appeared to be partially under the influence of liquor, approach Cobb and shout, "Hello, Carrie," which no one really knew what that meant, and he went in for a hug. Cobb then pushed him away, which was the last interaction that anyone saw between Cobb and Cummings. Shortly thereafter, hearing a fight, several reporters came running and found Cobb and Schmidt wrestling on the ground. When the fight was broken up and Cobb had walked away, Schmidt remained behind and told the reporters that he saw Cobb assaulting Cummings and his wife had intervened. Clearly, off the field, Ty Cobb was just as intense and unusual as he was on the field. He was obsessed with hygiene, bathing multiple times a day. He carried a pistol everywhere. He invested heavily in Coca-Cola and early automobile companies, becoming one of the richest athletes of his era. He kept meticulous scrapbooks of insults written about him. He practiced sliding in his front yard until the grass was gone, and he once bought a house simply because someone told him he couldn't afford it. Cobb lived life like he played baseball, full throttle with no apologies. Ty Cobb regarded baseball as something like a war. Future Tigers second baseman Charlie Gehringer said every time at bat for him was a crusade. And baseball historian John Thorne said he is a testament to how far you can get simply through will. Cobb was pursued by demons. On May 15th, 1912, Cobb assaulted a heckler, Claude Lucker, in the stands in New York's Hilltop Park, where the Tigers were playing the Highlanders. In this game, the two traded insults throughout the first couple of innings, and Cobb at one point went to the Highlander dugout to look for the Highlanders' owner to try to have Lucker ejected from the game, but the search was in vain. He also asked the police to intervene, but they refused. Cobb warned manager Harry Wolverton that if something was not done about this man, there would be trouble. And of course, no action was taken. So by the end of the sixth inning, Cobb had climbed into the stands and attacked Lucker, who it turned out was handicapped. He had lost all of one hand and 3 fingers on the other hand in an industrial accident. Some onlookers shouted at him to stop because the man had no hands, to which Cobb reportedly retorted, "I don't care if he ain't got no feet." According to Russo, the crowd cheered Cobb on in the fight. Though extremely rare in the 21st century, attacking fans was not so unusual of an activity in the early years of baseball. Ty Cobb ended up suspended by the league. His teammates backing him went on strike to protest the suspension and the lack of protection of players from abusive fans before the May 18th game in Philadelphia. For that one game, Detroit fielded a replacement team made up of a hastily recruited college and Sandlot players plus 2 Tigers coaches, and they lost 24-2. The strike ended when Cobb urged his teammates to return to the field. According to him, this incident led to the formation of a players' union known as the Ball Players Fraternity, an early version of what is now called the Major League Baseball Players Association, which garnered some concessions from the owners. Cobb got into a fight with umpire Billy Evans, and they settled their differences through fisticuffs under the grandstands after the game. In 1909, Cobb was arrested for assault for an incident that occurred in a Cleveland hotel. Cobb got into an argument with the elevator operator when the man refused to take him to the floor where some of his teammates were having a card game. The elevator operator stated that he could only take Cobb to the floor where his room was. As the argument escalated, a night watchman approached and he and Cobb eventually got into a physical confrontation. During the fight, Cobb produced a penknife and slashed the watchman across the hand. Cobb later claimed that the watchman, who had the upper hand in the fight, had his finger in Cobb's left eye, and Cobb was worried that he would have his sight ruined. The fight finally ended when the watchman produced a gun and struck Cobb several times in the head, knocking him down. And in June of 1914, Cobb pleaded guilty to disturbing the peace after pulling a revolver during an argument at a Detroit butcher shop. He was fined $50, which is the equivalent of $1,570 as of 2024. It was clear that Ty Cobb had a temper both on and off the field. While Ty Cobb was one of the most popular players in the sport at the time, Babe Ruth, who was sold to the renamed New York Yankees from the Boston Red Sox, had established himself as a power hitter, something Cobb was not considered to be. When the Tigers showed up in New York to play the Yankees for the first time that season, writers billed it as a showdown between stars of competing styles of play. As Ruth's popularity grew, Cobb became increasingly hostile towards him. He saw the Babe not only as a threat to his style of play, but also his style of life. Perhaps what angered him the most about Ruth was that despite the Babe's total disregard for his physical condition and traditional baseball, he was still an overwhelming success and brought fans to the ballparks in record numbers to see him challenge his own slugging records. Now, we did a video about Babe Ruth, I'll have that linked on the screen here. On May 5th of 1925, Cobb told a reporter for the first time in his career he was going to try to hit home runs, saying he wanted to show that he could hit home runs but simply chose not to. That day, Ty Cobb went 6 for 6 with 2 singles, a double, and 3 home runs. The next day, Cobb had 3 more hits, 2 of which were home runs. Even so, Ty Cobb had massive respect for Babe Ruth, once saying,
"Well, you can't beat the Babe. Ruth is one of the few who can take a terrific swing and still meet the ball solidly. His timing is perfect."
On September 3rd, Ty Cobb pinch hit in the 9th inning of the first game of a doubleheader against the Senators and doubled off of Bump Hadley for his last career hit. Although his final at-bats were not until September 11th against the Yankees, when he popped out off Hank Johnson and grounded out to shortstop Mike Koenig. That day, Ty Cobb announced his retirement. He batted .300 or higher in 23 consecutive seasons, his only other season under .300 being his rookie season, a major league record that is unlikely to be broken, and won a record 12 batting titles in 13 years, with a pair of seasons hitting over .400. Despite not being known as a slugger, he led the AL in RBI 4 times, he hit 295 triples, won the 1909 AL Triple Crown, and led the AL in slugging percentage 8 times in his 11 seasons from 1907 to 1917, being the only player beside Babe Ruth ever to lead that category in 6 or more consecutive seasons. In his retirement, Ty Cobb's children found him to be demanding yet capable of a kindness and extreme warmth. He expected his sons to be exceptional athletes in general, and baseball players in particular. Tyrus Raymond Jr. flunked out of Princeton, where he had played on the varsity tennis team, much to his father's dismay. Ty Cobb traveled to the Princeton campus and beat his son with a whip to ensure against future academic failure. Although Tyrus Raymond Jr. finally reformed and eventually earned an MD from the Medical College of South Carolina, it didn't matter. His father remained distant. In February of 1936, when the first Baseball Hall of Fame election results were announced, Cobb had been named on 222 of 226 ballots, outdistancing Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson, the only others to earn the necessary 75% of votes to be elected that year. His 98.2% stood as the record until Tom Seaver received 98.8% of the vote in 1992. Those results show that although many people disliked him personally, the baseball writers greatly respected the way that he played and all he accomplished. In 1949, at the age of 62, Cobb became generous with his wealth, donating $100,000 in his parents' name for his hometown to build a modern 24-bed hospital, Cobb Memorial Hospital, which is now part of the Ty Cobb healthcare system. He also established the Cobb Educational Fund, which awarded scholarships to needy Georgia students bound for college by endowing it with $100,000 donation in 1953. In December of 1959, Cobb was diagnosed with prostate cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, and Bright's disease. And only a few years later, on July 17, 1961, at the age of 74, Ty Cobb passed away. Ty Cobb's legacy is complicated. Some stories about him were exaggerated or outright fabricated. Others were absolutely true. He could be generous, donating to hospitals and education in Georgia, yet also cruel, paranoid, and explosive. He was a man of contradictions, a brilliant hitter with a violent temper, a wealthy philanthropist who couldn't escape his own demons, a baseball icon whose reputation is still debated today. But one thing is undeniable: Ty Cobb changed baseball forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into baseball's wildest icon, hit that like button, subscribe for more baseball history, and let me know in the comments, who should we cover next on Home Run Heritage? Until then, be sure to check out the video on the screen now talking about the life of Babe Ruth and the untold stories about his past.